Every Thursday afternoon, Clara Hayes found herself walking the aisles of Miller's Hardware. Since her husband, Robert, a master carpenter, passed away from a sudden heart attack 3 years ago, the scent of fresh-cut pine and machine oil had become her sanctuary. It made her feel close to him, a quiet 15 minutes of peace before returning to an empty house. Grief had stripped the color from Clara's world, but it had also given her a profound sensitivity to the silent, invisible battles fought by the people around her. That rainy afternoon, the store hummed with the low sounds of rain on the tin roof and the chatter of contractors. The atmosphere was industrious, except for one man standing at the lumber counter. His name was Marcus, wearing a faded canvas jacket and work boots that had seen better days. He stood staring at a shopping cart loaded with heavy, weather-treated pine boards and boxes of exterior screws. He looked utterly exhausted, his jaw tight as he nervously checked his phone balance. "I'm sorry, man," the young clerk said sympathetically. The card declined again. Marcus closed his eyes, letting out a long, ragged breath. There was no frustration directed at the cashier, just the heavy, crushing resignation of a father who had hit a wall. He pulled out a small wad of cash, counted it, and shook his head. "Okay," Marcus said quietly. "If I put back the treated wood and just take the cheap plywood." "How much is that?" The clerk looked pained. "I can do that, but honestly, untreated plywood won't last a month in this weather. It's going to rot." "It has to last just long enough," Marcus replied, his voice thick with unshed emotion. "My daughter comes home from rehab on Friday. She's in a wheelchair now. I just need a way to get her through the front door." Clara watched him from the end of the aisle. The way he carried himself, swallowing his pride simply because he had a child depending on him, reminded her vividly of the way Robert used to quietly bear the weight of their family's struggles when they were young. As Marcus turned to start unloading the heavy boards back onto the racks, a folded piece of notebook paper slipped from his pocket and landed on the concrete floor. Clara stepped forward and picked it up. It was a crude, hand-drawn sketch of a wheelchair ramp leading up to a porch. At the top, in a child's handwriting, someone had written, "Maya's Ramp." The innocence of the drawing tightened Clara's chest. She walked over and gently handed it back to him. Marcus took it, his face flushing with embarrassment. He offered a fragile, tired smile. Without prying, Clara simply smiled back and said, "It looks like a beautiful design." He thanked her in a whisper and walked back toward the lumber racks. Clara looked at the cart of premium, weather-treated wood left by the register. Without a second thought, she stepped up to the counter, pulled out her credit card, and paid the balance for the wood, the screws, and the delivery fee. The clerk smiled, recognizing her as Robert's widow. Clara asked him for a strict favor. She wanted the store to tell Marcus that the materials were covered under a surplus contractor's discount, demanding total anonymity. She knew firsthand that when life strips away everything else, keeping your dignity is all that matters. 10 minutes later, the store manager found Marcus in the parking lot, explaining the discount and telling him the premium wood would be delivered to his house within the hour. When Marcus walked back into the store to collect his receipt, his hands were trembling. He stared at the piece of paper like it was a winning lottery ticket. Before getting into his truck, he sat behind the steering wheel and finally let the tears fall, not just because his daughter was getting her ramp, but because the world had unexpectedly shown him that he wasn't carrying the burden alone. Clara watched it all from her sedan across the parking lot. She smiled, turned the key in the ignition, and assumed that was the end of it. She was wrong. 2 weeks later, Clara was volunteering with her church's meal train program, dropping off casseroles for families in the neighborhood going through medical emergencies. As she pulled up to the address on her list, she froze. There, leading up to the modest porch of the small house, was a beautiful, meticulously built ramp made of weather-treated pine. Sitting at the top of it in a wheelchair was a little girl with a cast on her leg, laughing as her father pushed her back and forth. As Clara walked up the driveway with the warm casserole in her hands, she smiled to herself. Buying that wood had done more than build a ramp. It had reminded a grieving widow that her husband's legacy of building things could still live on, restored a desperate father's strength, and quietly proven that even in our darkest moments, we are deeply connected to one another.